Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Side Effect, our podcast when it comes to complex web solution, every topic around WordPress. I'm Ronnie Marks. I'm the commercial director of Syde. Syde is the biggest WordPress agency here in Europe. And today I'm very happy that we have another special guest here with us. It's called Joshua König. König is correctly spelled, right?
Ooh, very
König?
good. Well, that is the canonical pronunciation. And it gets Americanized a few different ways as to Koenig or Koenig. So, because we don't really have the sound over here. But yes, very well done.
I can stick with König then, but I guess I
Yeah.
can also stick with Joshua or Josh even. It's even more, let's say, handy or whatsoever. So just a few words about you that everyone is capable or just aware of who we're talking to today. You are the co-founder of Pantheon, actually. So Pantheon, the WordPress ecosystem, especially and with web solution, Pantheon is pretty well known as one of the highest, let's say, hosting solution partner you can find out in the market. And also you're senior vice president when it comes to marketing. So co-founder and marketing expert in one person. I'm really excited to have you with us here today. And we're going to talk about a very special topic for me and for you as well. It's about relaunch and everything when it comes to complex web solutions. Before we start, Josh, co-founder, senior vice president marketing. You're 15 years now with Pantheon, and even more in the open source community. How does that feel? Because for me, I mean, only 1 year in the WordPress community, and it's still kind of adapting to this kind of very special industry. You are a pro here, so tell us, how does that feel working that industry for so long?
I mean, it's an honor. I think open source is a really interesting space in technology and in the economy, honestly, because it is somewhat unique and singular. The way that these communities have developed over the past, WordPress been around for 20 years, open source, maybe another 20 years before that as a phenomenon. But this is a way for people to generate value that didn't exist before the internet in a meaningful way. And I think it's something that, we've now kind of all come to accept, that there are these large scale collaborative projects, to create software, or if you think about Wikipedia, to create knowledge and document things that are just there. They're a part of our lives. We can kind of assume that they're out there, but they're a really special thing to be a part of. Not everybody who uses open source software can, even be cognizant that it comes from a community, nor do they have the time necessarily to dive in and be a part of that community. But if you do, it is really, it's a unique and special thing. And I'm incredibly lucky to have been able to build a career around that, and to build a company that, really lives and exists to help customers and users make the most of that technology that they possibly can.
Yeah, that's definitely a good explanation of it. And Pantheon is well known. We are a partner of Pantheon, so we work closely together. And last time I talked with your colleagues was in Basel, actually, at WordCamp Europe. We had just really a nice chat. It was like the booth just in front of each other, and also had some cool drinks after it. So I can tell, like, Pantheon is not only a professional hosting provider, it's also a great team you work with. So congratulations to building up this company with such great people.
Yeah, I think, something about when, as an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, everything you do will come down to the people and the culture you
100%.
create, and the norms that that the values you sort of invest in the company and stand behind. I think, ultimately, like, we are a software company, so our technology matters quite a lot, but the technology is the product of people's brains, and it's delivered by humans who do the creating, do the servicing, do the marketing and the selling and the supporting and so forth. And that's really what makes a company both effective as a commercial entity, but also, a place that you are happy to get up and go to work at, and excited to be a part of. And, being a part of a team, being part of a project that's means something to people. I mean, we have a value at Pantheon, which is we summarize as passion. What that really means is, like, we want everyone who works at Pantheon to be able to put their heart into the work that they do, because that is how you do your best work. And I think, that can't be true for everyone on every day, but it is mostly true for most people most of the time at the company. And then it's nice to hear that shows up, when you get to hang out and meet face to face with folks.
Yeah, well said. And, you know, it's also something we have in common because people are the, let's say, backbone of every company. I totally agree here. And also when it comes to Syde, I mean, when I joined Syde was like nearly a year ago. You know, working with WordPress was not new for me. I've like used WordPress for 14 years, maybe 15 years even. But when I saw the job opportunity, say, WordPress for enterprise, wait, what's that? I mean, WordPress is only a blog system. It's only small CMS. How can that work for enterprise companies, right? So I just learned a lot about these kind of things. And right now I'm pretty convinced that WordPress is definitely a good solution when it comes to enterprise companies. And then it's just a perfect, let's say, transition to our topic today, because we want to talk about relaunches, right? So
Yeah.
when a big company is approaching a hosting provider like you are, or like a service provider like we are, a web agency, for example, they want to have a new website. It's like, let's say it's your day-to-day business, it's our day-to-day business. And you can relaunch a website or you can relaunch a website. And there are different approaches. But when you hear the word relaunch, and I guess in 15 years in that business already, I guess you heard it like hundreds of times. So what is your first thing that comes to mind when you see like a big company, an enterprise company is approaching Pantheon and say, guys, we need a new website. Please help us with that. So what is just crossing your mind then?
I mean, the first thing that I hear, to be quite honest, when someone says we're going to do a website relaunch is like dread. You get an anxiety in the pit of your stomach when that project comes up. Like, it's exciting, but it's also scary. And I have been in this business for my entire professional career, so going on 25 years now, and been a part of, especially in my consulting days before, probably close to 100 website relaunch projects
Wow.
over the years. And I have come out of that, and this is part of what we put into building Pantheon. And we occupy this space as a host, but we like to think of ourselves as more than that, or it's hosting, but there's something that makes us different. And part of that was born out of that experience of seeing how counterproductive, wasteful, toxic, and ultimately ineffective these big relaunch projects frequently are. It's nobody's fault, right? This is like, unfortunately, it's still just a norm in the industry that you try to fix everything all at once with
Yeah.
these big projects. And, that's not unique to websites. There's a lot of IT projects that take on that character. Professionals all acknowledge that that's not really how you get great solutions. And yet we keep doing it that way. And a lot of it has to do with, this is what we set about to change with Pantheon, at least in our corner of, people who build the internet. um, the normal process for a web technology implementation, regardless of the underlying thing. This is true if it's Adobe or Sitecore or WordPress, right? It's, let's go do a bunch of work with a designer, with some researchers, with an agency. We're going to go off into a back room. We're going to figure it all out. We're going to come out with the perfect spec and plan. And then we're going to build the work process to like implement all of that over the next 6 to 9 to 12 to realistically time, things get behind maybe more than 12 months. And then people are like really trying to get to that deadline. Maybe there's actually something happening in the world that it has to be done for. That time can't change. And at the end of it, you've gotten through like 80% of the scope you originally identified. You've probably made some compromises or some, I want to say cut some corners, but you've had to like make some quick decisions towards the end to get it done. You get it over the finish line. Hopefully it launches successfully and doesn't crash. But at that point, no one wants to touch it ever again. In some ways, that's not just a feeling, an emotional feeling of being burnt out after those like really hard pushes at the end to get these things done. It's often just a reality of it's not safe, right? Like, these projects, if they're not built to have a life going forward,
Yeah.
you'll get what you get and the software will work, but your ability to evolve what's happening with that software, to evolve the design, to
Yeah.
evolve the functionality is very limited. And so the normal course of projects is work, 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 maintenance mode. And what's really unfortunate about that is that pattern cuts people off from the true value of open source. The true
Okay.
value of open source is that there's a constant flow of innovation that's happening not just from the core project, but from the whole ecosystem around it. The true value of open source is you actually own this technology. You can make it what you need it to be. And the truth is, no matter how smart you were in that design phase at the beginning of the project, number one, you weren't perfect. 0% chance that you were 100% accurate in all the decisions you made there. Number two, you didn't get it live until 9, 12, maybe more months later. So even
Yeah.
if you were really right then, do you have what the market demands now? Also, like, you could be close, but you're not going to be 100% accurate. And then things are going to change. And can you keep up with the pace of change? So
Okay.
we really built Pantheon, and why we put together this notion of elite enterprise hosting with a professional grade DevOps workflow for web teams was so that you would never stop innovating. So that,
Hmm.
there might be a big push to get something live, but you don't go to maintenance mode where nothing else happens. You get it live, and then you start to look at your data. Like, what's working, what isn't working, what's happening, what do we need to change? You listen to your stakeholders who are, now finally actually engaging with the product and trying to use it on a day-to-day basis. They're going to discover things in the first week after the site launches that they never realized in the design phase. And then you can be responsive to those things. You can say, hey, let's fix that. Or, hey, that's not working, let's cut it back. Or, hey, this thing that we had decided we could live without in order for the launch, it feels like we actually really need that. So let's go ahead and, do a couple sprints of work and get that live. Like, putting people in a position to keep driving their website forward is how you really empower web teams to actually go deliver outstanding business results. The old pattern of one big bang relaunch, I mean, it worked in an era when a website was a static brand asset, right?
Yeah.
And that was almost like a feature. Like, it's not supposed to change after it goes live because we made it immaculate. It's pixel perfect. It doesn't have a life beyond that. But that's not what the web is. The web is a living, breathing medium. It's a channel. It's a way. It's the way that you engage with the public digitally on a surface that is actually belongs to you versus belongs to some other company. And so, that's just what we're trying to do, and what I believe, like, deeply in, is really valuable web experiences come from an ongoing, iterative, agile process.
I totally get it, and you're so right in so many things. But when a potential client approaches us and say, there's a website. And usually when we talk about enterprise clients, it's not like there's a website, we have a blog, we have like I don't know what, a job platform, and
Hmm.
basically that's it with some static landing pages. I know that everyone in that ecosystem know that could be a very complex thing. For example, like hundreds of sub-brand sites, like a multi-site, whatever thing included, languages, third-party tools included, CRM, ERP, you name it. It could be very, very, very huge. So like, I'm completely agreeing here. So like, you don't have to be too static about it. You have to approach it more dynamically. But when you cut it down and you have to provide, let's say, a checklist or some basic criterias and say, this is my recommended list, these KPIs, these whatever thresholds, these leverages, these kind of things you have to consider, these kind of things you have to take care about when we want to approach a complex relaunch. Let's say 5 most important criterias for potential clients in that area. When people listen to that right now, what is that, Joss? What would you say?
Well, I'm glad that you said, KPIs, because the key unlock in helping get clients out of the standard thinking, because people only know what they know, right? And people
True.
may not believe that it's possible to do it differently. Um, the way to do this is to reframe people and use actually, it's a very business oriented argument, and you can look at the way that um, modern software is built and the way that product management works when it's working well, which is aligning on goals. Right. That's actually kind of if you find yourself in a world where you feel like you're going through the checklist of features and functionality, or you're like just kind of you're stuck in this, conversation that's just about capabilities or timelines or other stuff like that. You have to see if you can, just pump the brakes for a second, take a step back, and
Yeah.
understand, well, if this goes really well, what will happen for
Hmm.
your business? If this goes really well, what will we achieve? Is this about reaching a new audience? Is this about opening a new capability or a new line of business? Is this about internal efficiency? Is this about like consolidating a bunch of chaos for people so that we have a more rational way to do things, and aligning on the business goals and then understanding how those will be measured? And then you can couple that with some KPIs that are just general best practice around experience, right? So like you can look at core web vitals is a really good thing if they're not already aware of in their web practice. Just bring that to them, which is, it kind of doesn't matter what functionality or design we end up building. If the experience is clunky and slow, all that investment will be undermined. And so that you want to set out, and have some business goals that you align on driving towards, because then like the specific functionality and everything else is all negotiable, because you don't know for sure until you launch it what will get you towards those goals. You can have a good hypothesis, but you cannot test that hypothesis until things are live. And then you have your baseline metrics. Again, core web vitals is, I consider, like a non-negotiable for any project, but there's other ones that you could put in there. Like you could have, some notes about site editor experience, or other things around usability, some other kind of foundational metrics that you keep track of. And what you are doing then is you're starting to have a ongoing dialogue about what will help us reach our goals.
Yeah.
And like that's experimental work, effectively. And then without ever compromising these baselines. And then you kind of develop this, and actually very tactically for anybody out there like who is in the services side of things. One of the ways you do this is by structuring your project so that the budget is like only halfway done when the first launch happens. Right, because people still do have to budget. Like firms that are actually really good at working this way, they just work on a retainer basis, and they get renewed forever because they're helping the firms reach those goals. But if you're still coming from a world that's more traditional, and lots of customers, they do just want, especially for initial engagement, they want to know, here's what I'm putting in, what am I going to get out? The way to structure that is just to say, we're going to make an investment in your core platform, because we do have to do that. And what we're recommending is we retain 40-50% of our working budget to do work after that initial launch, because that's the most meaningful work we'll do, because it'll be based on real world observations.
No, I mean, I could listen to you for hours now, because it's like you can really feel that you live what you're saying there. And it's a lot of added value for us, and also hopefully for our audience. Looking at the time, I feel one last question in your direction right now, Josh. Again, have been working in the open source field forever, kind of, at least from my perspective, right? And I guess you heard of all these stupid statements that open source is not secure enough. It's not really scalable. It's not about performance. It's like, go play with your small block system, whatever. But when it comes to enterprises, we need Sidecore. We need Adobe Experience Manager. We need like something big. We are the biggest, and we need the biggest platform out there is, right? So when it comes down to this, and I'm pretty sure you talked about these kind of things with your potential clients and existing clients as well. What would you say is your killer statement, your killer argument when someone says open source is not ready for enterprise? How would you answer that?
Well, I would say it's objectively being used by most enterprises around the world already.
Sure.
You can point to case study after case study of Adobe WordPress replacing Adobe Experience Manager, replacing Sitecore. I don't know of any studies of the trend going in the opposite direction. Objectively speaking, those big DXP platforms are all declining in adoption. I have some first-party research data. I'm actually going to publish something about this soon. I've done a bit before.
Nice.
I have this little side blog called ripdxp.com where I publish my research on this. But it's just the case that these big monolithic digital experience platforms that were sold into the enterprise over the past decade, many times they haven't delivered. They're very expensive. They're very slow to work with. There's a very small pool of talent that even knows how to work on them. And as a result, like, I'm sure some of the people who adopted those things are very happy with the results they get. But when you see the number of websites powered by these platforms just going down steadily over time, that tells a story.
Yeah.
And the thing about open source and WordPress in particular, you have to kind of educate people a little bit about WordPress
Yeah.
because everybody knows of it because it's the dominant CMS platform for the whole web. It's over 40% of the web. And so as a result, it is used in lots of niche, long tail, sort of consumer grade contexts, which is awesome. We've democratized publishing. That's an amazing thing to have done. And when coupled with best practices and an enterprise grade platform, it is an amazing solution for large scale organizations, particularly, as you mentioned before, the ones that actually have as kind of like diverse set of needs within their web workload or their web portfolio, because the DXPs, they are monolithic. They will force everyone to use one instance of the software. You could effectively say that multi-site is the only way they operate, and they charge based on license fees. So you can never afford to run 2 site cores even if you wanted to. Because WordPress is open source and it's unencumbered by the core license fee, there's a way to deploy WordPress for an enterprise that probably makes use of multi-site where it's appropriate, where there is really like a very much a templated use case, but isn't restricted to just that approach. We have seen enterprise customers, as part of adopting a design system and some other fundamental tooling around how they manage their digital experience at scale, get tremendous value from really adopting WordPress not as a single instance software, but as an enterprise platform that's used by different teams in different markets for different things with a ton of shared assets and resources and lower total cost of ownership. Like that enterprise WordPress story is actually, that's one that I'm very interested in telling, like with my marketing hat on now. This year going into next year, I think it's one of the best kept secrets in our industry is that people are adopting WordPress at large scale and doing it really effectively within this enterprise context.
Perfectly described. I couldn't have expressed it better. So thank you so much for all the insights today. Again, I have a lot of questions. Maybe we can do a follow-up later with another podcast episode. And
I would love to.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And when people want to reach out to you, they can find you on LinkedIn. You have a very well-maintained profile there, and we definitely will link your contact data in our blog post about this later. So, Josh, thank you so much. I'm pretty sure you're a busy guy. You have to run a very successful company, so I don't want to take so much time from you right now. Thank you just that you joined us and took the time for this nice episode here with Side Effect. And for all the people listening right now, please make sure if you don't want to miss any new episode here, subscribe to our podcast channel. You can listen to Spotify or just YouTube or Apple Podcasts, wherever you want. You can find our podcast.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me on, and I would love to do a follow-up. Like, we should love to ask you some questions and learn this too.
Sounds great. So thank you so much and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you as well. Take care.